Blockbuster films? Movies with big budgets, major stars and mass marketing? They are bigger than ever. The past decades have been dominated by huge spectacle films. As an increasing number of films find global audiences, their box office totals just compound. Let's check out the top 10 highest grossing movies in the world. But before starting the video, please subscribe to the channel and click on the notification icon so you will get notified when we upload the next video. 10. Frozen 2, 2019. Box office $1.45 billion. There's a bit of diminishing returns with the sequel to Frozen, the aching feeling that this exists not for any compelling narrative or artistic reasons, but because Disney didn't feel like leaving an easy $1 billion on the table. To the studio's credit though, it didn't have to be this good. Almost anything with the name Frozen 2 and Anna and Elsa on the poster would have been an instant smash hit. Frozen 2 expands on the original in a way that makes sense and doubles down on what made it work. Extravagant show tunes and dazzling computer animation. 9. The Avengers 2012. Box office $1.51 billion. Nestled amongst the gaudy box office numbers of Joss Whedon's blockbuster is a much simpler achievement. Yes, The Avengers should evoke a deserved appreciation of Whedon's directorial skills. And yes, the film's release and reception make for a natural, and that's when it was official moment that the MCU took over Hollywood. But for comic book fans especially, The Avengers represents the first instance of the superhero team dynamic truly captured and sustained on film. Even though the X-Men and the Fantastic Four had received big screen treatment, those films were all still pretty static. The interaction between both heroes and villains was slow, separate vignettes, rather than two-way, three-way or more-way battles. If Raimi's Spider-Man showed why comic book superheroes are fun, The Avengers showed why superhero teams are. 8. Furious 7, 2015. Box office $1.52 billion. Watching the 7th installment of the adrenaline-fueled Fast and Furious franchise, one gets a distinct impression that when faced with a creative choice, the filmmakers asked themselves, what's the most insane, over-the-top thing we can do here? Then they did just that. For a series of films that has been a continual escalation in physics-defying stunts, Furious 7 takes it to an entirely new level. The result is a damn lot of fun. Furious 7 is part revenge thriller, part daring heist, and more than a little of a loving goodbye to a dear friend. Franchise star Paul Walker died in a car crash before filming was complete, and both his life and death loom large over the movie. As his character, Brian O'Connor, experiences one harrowing escapade after another, you wait for the moment where he meets his end. It feels inevitable, and waiting around every corner. There are more than a few instances where Walker's face is digitally pasted on another body. His brothers stood in for him to help finish the production. The movie is also a celebration of his life. The chemistry between the cast is undeniable, and it's easy to see how much everyone involved enjoys themselves. 7. The Lion King 2019. Box office $1.65 billion. The Lion King feels less like a more realistic version of the classic animated original than a bloodless X-ray of it. The new Disney trend of making live-action versions of their animated catalogue, live action, of course, being the exact wrong term for what this is, can have a purpose besides the obvious profitability of reviving an existing brand name if its goal is to conjure the spirit of the original rather than artificially reinflate its corpse. David Lowery's Pete's Dragon wasn't perfect, but it felt like a fond cover rather than, well, taxidermy. That's what the new Lion King feels like. It feels like taxidermy. It feels like computers attempting to impersonate real life and doing so with such rigid, determined accuracy that the result feels both emotionless and even a little ghoulish. What exactly are these creatures? The movie is dutifully mounted, and Favreau brings the same dogged professionalism he brought to the Jungle Book. 6. Jurassic World 2015. Box office $1.67 billion. Jurassic World marks the 4th entry in its paleontological franchise, but it's probably more important as the second chapter in the story of Chris Pratt's unexpected ascent to movie stardom. Pratt, seemingly born to make a career out of playing lovable doofuses, made his goofy tenor work for him in Guardians of the Galaxy. With Jurassic World, he shed that skin almost entirely in favour of aping the hard-jawed macho men of the 1950s B-movie canon. That transformation lends the film inevitability, as if brand recognition didn't give Jurassic World enough of a box office edge. The image of Pratt riding a motorcycle side by side a quartet of raptors should sold Colin Trevorrow's picture to the crowds. That scene, and others like it, let Jurassic World function as a suitably thrilling rollercoaster ride. Unsurprisingly, they don't add up to a particularly good movie, but Trevorrow has enough diversion stored up his sleeve that the film's inconsistencies and overarching sloppiness almost don't matter. 5. Avengers Infinity War 2018. Box office $2.05 billion. Avengers Infinity War is epic in a way that has been often aspired to but never fully grasped when it comes to the translation from comic book panel to the big screen. It's what happens when movie makers take their source material seriously, eschewing unnecessary melodrama even as they fully embrace the grandeur, the sheer spectacle of it all. And if there's one lesson Disney has learned, it's that if you focus on the viewer experience, the product lines will take care of themselves. For every frenetic fight scene in Avengers Infinity War, and there are plenty of them, there are myriad character interactions and emotional beats the audience has been prepped for by the previous films. Okay, maybe not 2008's The Incredible Hulk. As a result, writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely have ample room to riff and play as characters meet for the first time or see each other again. 4. Star Wars The Force Awakens 2015. Box office $2.06 billion. The Force Awakens was the remedy to the near-terminal prequel-itis of fans. J.J. Abrams and company accomplished this act of restorative cinema primarily through a return to the dirty future aesthetic that made the original trilogy feel so real, no matter how absurd the dialogue being delivered by the characters. That's not to say CGI is lacking, but whereas budget and technology constraints helped the first 3 films and an overabundance hurt the next 3, the balance between practical and special effects in The Force Awakens feels near perfect. 3. Titanic 1997. Box office $2.21 billion. Decades after its theatrical debut, James Cameron's blockbuster epic is still so ubiquitous in the pop culture zeitgeist. Its filmmaking marvels are drowned out by young Kate and Leo nostalgia and that damned Celine Dion caterwaul, not to mention the now late James Horner's iconic score. Cameron's ear for dialogue may be woefully leaden, but he's a shrewd storyteller, plunking a Romeo and Juliet redux aboard the doomed ocean liner and flanking the fictional romance with historical details, groundbreaking special effects, and jaw-dropping visuals. The narrative lapses are at times dumbfounding. 2. Avengers Endgame 2019. Box office $2.80 billion. Where does one begin? When it comes to Avengers Endgame, that question is not so much an expression of wanton enthusiasm as a practical challenge in evaluating the destination toward which Kevin Feige and company have been steering story and viewer alike for the previous 11 years and 21 films. Though there have been plenty of 3-hour-plus movies and even a few 20-plus entry movie franchises, there's really nothing to compare with what Disney and Marvel Studios have pulled off, either in terms of size, quality and consistency of cast, a moment of silence for Edward Norton and Terrence Howard, or in how narrow the chronological window, all things considered, those movies were produced. Though we've praised it often, casting remains the cornerstone of the MCU. Whether by pitch-perfect distillations of decades-old comic book characters, Captain America, Thor, Spider-Man, or charisma-fueled reinventions of the same, Iron Man, Ant-Man, Star-Lord, the MCU's batting average in terms of casting is not only practically obscene, it's a crucial ingredient in ensuring the thematic and emotional payoff, and box office payday of Endgame. 1. Avatar 2009. Box office $2.85 billion. It makes sense that Avatar is the highest grossing movie ever made. Irony and insincerity have no place in its extended universe. Whether or not James Cameron intended to crib the world of Pandora and its futuristic inhabitants from practically every fantastical Euro-text ever conceived, it hardly matters, because Avatar is modern myth-making at its most foundational. Cameron still seems to believe that the movies can give audiences a transformative experience. So, every sinew of his film bears a Herculean effort of truly genius world building, telling the simple story of Jake Sully, Sam Worthington, and his dances with wolves like saving of the Navi natives to the planet of Pandora from the destructive forces of colonialism. Cameron wants us to care about this world as much as Jake Sully, and by extension, James Cameron does, crafting flora and fauna with borderline sociopathic obsessiveness, at the time pushing 3D technology to its brink to bring his inhuman imagination alive. If you'd like to watch one of these movies, how about the top 10 richest YouTubers? Watch this video to discover the extraordinary money these YouTubers made. Thanks for watching.